What's up, guys? So, I'm going to be talking about the deleted scenes from Star Wars The Force Awakens. J.J. Abrams' first cut of the film was almost 3 hours long. I think it was about 2 hours and 50 minutes, maybe 40 minutes, and that got cut down to the original runtime, which was 2 hours and 16 minutes. So, I think there was about 20 or so minutes of deleted scenes that got cut, and some of them were actually pretty cool. So, I'm just going to go through them all and explain them to you, what they exactly were and like where they fit into the film. Now, the first scene would be one that involved Luke Skywalker's first lightsaber, and apparently there was a scene that would have happened straight after the famous Star Wars crawl, and that would have been, it would have panned down to Luke's lightsaber and maybe Luke's cut off hand holding the lightsaber tumbling through space somehow. I can obviously see why it was cut. Kinda silly and kinda doesn't really explain how it gets into space or anything, so probably a good idea that they did actually cut this scene, but apparently it was cut very late in the process, and obviously it probably stayed in there for quite some time, which is pretty interesting. Next up was more stuff to do with General Leia Organa and the New Republic, mainly stuff to do with the new Galactic Senate. Leia would actually get more time with the Galactic Senate, mainly a conversation with a woman named Corsella, played by Maisie Richardson Sellers. It would just basically give us a little bit more detail on the New Republic, and apparently her reputation, Leia's reputation, has been corrupted by politicians and relies on these younger senators who believe in her to sort of make a case for her against these senators that don't believe in her. And I think that was pretty cool. I can understand why it was cut. It probably dragged down the movie a little bit, since we didn't want to go into the prequel territory with all their, trade taxations and stuff like that that were all in the prequel Senate stuff. But yeah, I could see it coming back in the movie. I would like a little bit more information about this whole New Republic, but I know we're probably going to get it in the other movies, as well as books and stuff. But yeah, it could have done with maybe being in there, maybe like one scene being in there somehow. But yeah, I can understand why it was cut. Next up, we have Finn trying to get a ride into town. This is obviously takes place after he crashes his TIE fighter and wanders the desert. I think he comes across a speeder with a bunch of scavengers and tries to barter with them into getting into town. This isn't actually in the movie, it's in the novelization though. And I can see why it was cut. It didn't really need to be in the film. Yeah, it's pretty cool that the speeder actually got made into a toy, I believe, with Finn. So you can see it was actually in the film for a while and then obviously got cut. So yeah, it was pretty cool. It would have been cool to see a little bit more of like the aliens of Jakku and like their technology, but I understand why it was cut. Keeping with scenes on Jakku, we have one involving Constable Zavuo, and this scene would have actually changed a little bit of the movie, since this would have taken place right after the thugs try to attempt to abduct BB-8 from Rey, and this scene would have actually taken place earlier in the movie before Finn even managed to get to Jakku, and it would have involved Constable Zavuo basically coming over and just sort of breaking up the whole fight that was between Rey and these thugs, and give us a little bit more about this Constable Zavuo and like hear him talk and like hear his men and everything. And yeah, I can not really see why it was cut. I would have liked to have seen this guy, since he's had action figures made of him. He was in some early set pics that were released, I think, for Empire. So it doesn't really make much sense why that was cut. And then obviously it was reshot and changed in editing as well to sort of get him out of it and like sort of edit him out of the movie as well. I was kind of upset because he looked like a really cool alien. It was all practical effects for him as well. And I think he was played by someone famous. I'm not sure exactly who, but yeah, it's kind of weird that they cut that, especially since he had all these action figures, and he even had a book called High Noon on Jakku written about him as well, so it was kind of weird that he got cut from the film. The next is kind of one that's kind of for like the hardcore fans, and this is when Han Solo and Chewie recapture the Millennium Falcon, and Han goes into the cockpit and he sort of stands there and sort of smirks. A different edit was actually made for that and put into the film and left in the film for a while, where he sort of looks and I think touches the two dice that he has hanging above the console, and these are the Corellian Spike dice from his game of Sabacc, which he won the Falcon from Lando Calrissian. So it's kind of like a little nod to like the EU, as well as for us hardcore fans, a little cool little thing that was actually in the original movies as well, but it was taken out of this movie. I guess it doesn't really make much difference to the story in general. Moving on to Maz Kanata's castle, and did anyone ever notice that Maz Kanata kind of disappears after giving Finn the lightsaber? J.J. Abrams has come out and said that after this, Maz Kanata didn't really have much to do in the film, and they didn't really know really what to do with her, but in the attack by the First Order on her castle, after she gives Finn the lightsaber, she actually uses her force powers on some stormtroopers, and we've already knew this was happening before the film actually came out, because a bunch of Lego sets for Maz Kanata's castle actually came out, and they had her Lego figure using the force against some stormtroopers and like levitating them and pushing them away and stuff. Would have been pretty cool to see, but yeah, I could see why it was cut. And she didn't really do much after the fact. You know, she gave the lightsaber. That was like really her purpose, to sort of get the lightsaber to the Resistance and tell Rey about the Force and everything. But yeah, I was kind of hoping that she would have gotten a little bit more in the movie, since I really liked her character. I thought Lupita Nyong'o did a really good job of this character, especially as a CGI character. I thought she was fantastic. But yeah, hopefully we'll get to see a bit more of her in the next couple of movies. The next scene involved more Unkar plot. Simon Pegg's Junker character that Rey gives her scrap to for food, and it would have involved him actually tracking the Millennium Falcon to where Han captures it and sort of just coming after his property that he stole. And what was really great about this is the reasoning why they tracked it was because of an old Imperial homing device, which was the one that was fitted on them from Empire Strikes Back, which is really cool. I thought that was really neat, a little throwback to that. And in this scene, Rey and Unkar get into a fight, and you know, Rey attempts to use her new blaster that Han gives her, and Plutt is able to easily defend himself against her and everything, and then Chewbacca steps in and rips the guy's arm off, which I thought was absolutely fantastic. And we had heard hints about Simon Pegg's character actually getting his arm ripped off by Chewbacca, and obviously it was filmed and everything, but it was obviously re-edited and everything, not to be included in the film. Personally, I think it would have been really cool to see, you know, Contra Club and the Guavian Death Gang show up, and then Unkar Plutt show up, and, you know, they're all after something from Han and these other guys, and then, yeah, Chewie just comes in and rips the guy's arm off. I thought that would have been really cool. But yeah, I could see why it was cut, you know, obviously because it would be a bit too violent, since we actually haven't seen Chewie pull someone's arm off in a movie, and obviously the movie got a PG-13 rating, and if he did something like that, and apparently in the novel it's described as like he pulls it off and there's like bone snapping and stuff like that happening, so it probably would have pushed it to maybe like an M or an R rating, so obviously couldn't have that. Again, more Maz Kanata deleted scenes, and this one would have seen her joining the other heroes at the Resistance base, where she gives Leia Luke's lightsaber, and obviously in the final cut of the film she gives Finn the lightsaber at her castle, and we actually saw this shot in the first trailer, I believe, where she passes it to Leia and Leia sort of holds it and everything. So it'll be interesting to see actually that as a deleted scene and how that actually unfolds, and whether we get a little bit more backstory on how she actually got the lightsaber, since she says to Han when he asks how she got it that it was a story for another time, so maybe she was saving it to sort of tell Leia, seeing as she was Luke's sister, and sort of explaining how she got it and everything. But yeah, this was the one scene I was really interested in since we obviously got more Maz Kanata as well as, you know, more Resistance based stuff. Next was a scene we actually got a partial look at, which was in Rey's vision. She actually sees Cloud City. For a brief moment she sees the corridor in which Vader and Luke fight down, and apparently there was going to be another scene which saw Vader cutting off Luke's hand, but from a slightly different angle, which would have been really cool to see them recreate that. And I remember before the film actually came out, I was actually talking with Tom G and saying how they could actually do a scene like this, and it's great to actually get a little bit of confirmation that I was kind of right, and it would have been actually really cool to see how they would have recreated this, you know, with today's technology. And I guess obviously it maybe would have been CGI plus using the actual actors, you know, Mark Hamill and a guy in a Darth Vader outfit. But yeah, it was pretty cool. But in the other stuff, we do get to hear like Luke saying no when he gets told Vader is his father and everything. Also in the scene, we actually get a little bit more of the flashback, flash forward sort of thing with Rey when she touches the lightsaber, and we actually see the owners of the lightsaber, from how the saber got from Bespin, landed on a planet and, was passed down through a bunch of people. I think there was one where a owner would find it and uses it to start fires, since, you just touch the lightsaber blade to something wooden or something, leafy, and it'll catch fire. But yeah, it was pretty cool, and I would have liked to have seen that. It's a shame that it got cut. This next scene is one that I was kind of wondering why they actually cut, and it was snowtroopers and Kylo Ren boarding the Millennium Falcon after it crashes on Starkiller Base. Now, this sort of made sense. We've actually seen the scene actually got shot, since some pictures appeared in, I believe, one of the visual dictionaries that got released for the film, and it would have depicted the Millennium Falcon crashing on the planet, and Han, Finn, Chewie that go off to sort of find Rey and everything, and Kylo Ren, we see in the film, senses his father's presence on the planet, and he goes actually to the Millennium Falcon, and he sort of has like an emotional moment inside the cockpit of the Falcon as he sort of remembers it from his childhood, I guess, or sort of remembers like what could have been. So it would have been really cool to see that, especially just before he kills his father. But yeah, I don't really understand why it was cut. It would have been just like a quick, maybe like 2-minute scene, but yeah, I really wish they would have left that one in. Next would have been a whole new action scene set on Starkiller Base involving Rey and Finn in a speeder chase with some stormtroopers through an Arctic tundra. This is actually in the novelization and sort of details them heading to the oscillator where they see Han Solo die, and while they're heading there they actually get chased by some stormtroopers, and a firefight happens, and they actually end up killing the troopers and everything, and then yeah, they get to the oscillator, and we see sort of the final bit of this scene where they hop out of a speeder, and Rey is wearing Finn's jacket and they head up the ladder. So yeah, I can understand why it was cut. We already had the action of the starfighter chase and everything through the main oscillator and everything, as well as like the stuff from Han and Chewie, so I can see why it was cut. They didn't want to over flood with all these action scenes that are happening at the same time, so I could definitely see why it was cut. And finally, one of the last major scenes that were cut was Snoke dismissing Vader's redemption back to Anakin Skywalker. In the scene, it would have seen Ren talking to Snoke about Vader and how Snoke saw, the Galactic Empire rise and fall and everything, and he talks about Anakin Skywalker and Darth Vader and how Vader's redemption back to Anakin was a moment of weakness, and he's basically playing to Kylo Ren's emotions, saying that like, you're not like him, you're better than him, so you won't, be redeemed or anything, which I think is pretty cool. I thought that was a really cool scene. I wish it was really kept. It was in the novelization, but yeah, I would have really liked to have seen this a little bit more, playing on Ren's obsession with his grandfather, and sort of saying, yeah, he was weak when he turned to the light side, so don't do it. You're better than him, you're stronger than him now, so you won't be turning back to the light side, because he was saying that he was being tempted by the light side, being drawn back to it when he really wasn't, and Snoke sort of manipulating him through the mask and everything, and I thought that was really cool. It would have given us a little bit more Snoke, as well as a little bit more time with Ren and this whole Darth Vader, obsession. And that's it for the deleted scenes for The Force Awakens. There were some other ones, but they were mainly alternate camera shots or slightly longer takes of a scene, so they don't really matter that much. But yeah, there were some pretty interesting ones that were cut, and I hope a lot of them actually get put on the Blu-ray as deleted scenes that you could see and watch, and I guess with commentary or something from JJ. But yeah, it would be interesting to see some of these scenes on the Blu-ray, and yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing them. Thanks for listening, and be sure to check out some more Star Wars related videos here on Comic Book Cast.